Woohoo! Alright, I'm just back from the theaters. And with one or two minor little things, this movie was amazing! Like, seriously, if you're questioning why everyone's saying this was worth it, you need to go see it yourself.
Welcome to the heart of the stories we tell. My name is Rob, and tonight I will be reviewing
Black Panther. And let me start by saying that I'm not a huge comic book fan of Black Panther. I kind of like some of his books, but there's some innate problems I have with his way of doing things and some of the stories involving him. I did like him in the Civil War movie, which is funny because I'm not a big fan of Civil War concept. And at the same time, especially the way that movie ended, really made me feel hopeful for this. I also enjoyed their way of doing things when it came to some of the animated versions of him, and I liked some of his stories. In fact, one of my favorite involved him getting married to one of my favorite X-Men, Ororo Monroe, Storm, and I've read every single issue of the Ultimates that was led by him. I'm not exactly a big fanboy, but I went into this movie expecting it to be good, and hoping that it's more than just a teased lead-in for what we've already seen for Infinity War. And it looks like that's going to be a big set piece with all of the characters there. Now, for those of you that don't know, what I do here is I review stories, good stories, bad stories, you name it, because I think every story has value. And on top of that, I break things down into theory videos every Sunday on theories of storytelling, and this week I'm actually talking about marriages, so we're going to take a look at the Storm and Black Panther one anyway. But I just hit 100 subscribers, and so I'm giving away an Amazon gift card and a special video that I will link at the end of this. However, to be part of that, you need to subscribe, so why don't you click that subscribe button now and join us for all of these great movies and stories as we take apart and walk through the heart of the stories we tell. I have my own crazy rating system based on medals on the D&D coin system. I don't even remember why I chose that, but I did. And you know what? This is a solid gold. It is probably one of the best Marvel Universe movies. It's not going to unseat Winter Soldier as my favorite, but it's giving it a run for its money. That's not to say there aren't flaws. In fact, every comic book movie has flaws. In fact, this is the same one that several of the previous incarnations of comic book movies had. But at its core, it even fixed some of the problems that I have in the comic books. And things that people were complaining about ahead of time, oh, just ignore them. This is brilliantly put together. Everything about this movie is obviously stylized, but also obviously well thought out and how it fits. And again, if anything, I would say that this movie is a better origin for Black Panther than we get in the MCU normally. And I really like this version of T'Challa. In every way, shape, or form, he's a strong, independent leader, even though he's still young and coming into his own. In many ways, this movie is the Black Panther origin movie. And you know what? It's pretty amazing as that. There's lots of things that if you don't know Black Panther, you might not recognize, but the heart-shaped herb, the entire way they do the trial by combat, the way they hid away Wakanda, all of it is taken directly out of the comics, and every bit of it is beautifully done. Now, I said they made changes, and they did, and when we get into spoilers, I'll go into more specifics. But the only flaw that I see is what I'm so far termed the Marvel flaw. And that has to do with villains, but I don't want to give too much away. I'm just going to tell you, I feel that they wasted yet another one. Now, having said that, this movie perfectly sets up the fact that Wakanda is going to be important going forward in a way that I love and makes me very reminiscent of those Ultimates comics that I read. So, at the same time, I know I'm not always the most objective. I still am a huge fan of the Green Lantern movie because, well, I'm a huge Green Lantern fan. I know that the movie had flaws, but see, that's where this is different. This isn't a good movie in spite of its flaws. This is a good movie that I think everyone's going to love, and I think that we might finally see what comic book movies have been missing up till now. The critics and the audience scores going together with how awesome this is going to be. In general, it follows the classic hero's journey. In fact, I'd say it almost is the perfect arc. It's the person who is somewhere between Icarus and Man in the Hole. And speaking of Man in the Hole, I can tell you already, I can see that CinemaSins is going to be all like, we'll let gravity decide this. But I think now we're getting into spoiler territory.
So once again, it's stop. Spoiler time. Ba-da-na-na.
So, okay, spoiler time. The movie is great. It picks up almost immediately after Civil War, which more than a little surprised me. But enough time passes during the movie that I think it's brought us up to date. It still has Ross in it, and it still has the entirety of the world thinking that Wakanda is a backwater spear and shield type agrarian society, when in reality, Wakanda is in a massive technological city. Like, imagine New York City in most futuristic settings. And now this is where it deviates from the comics a little. One of my biggest problems with the comics is they make T'Challa still the hero, but they have him withhold all of his technology. And this movie is almost entirely about the growth out of that and the fact that they are coming out into the world and sharing their technologies. One of my personal pet peeve moments, and I wish I could remember which writer did this, but a writer rewrote the concept of T'Challa's father and has him have the cure for cancer. And he sits there and he goes, but we can't let the others in the world have it because they'll just use it to make money and make war. And I'm like, dude, how can you have a superhero who has the cure for cancer and could just freely distribute it to cancer patients and still call him the hero? Now, part of this is also, how does the world change with superheroes in it? In a world with Reed Richards or Tony Stark, we already have problems with that. With a whole society like Wakanda coming out now, the MCU Earth is not going to look like our Earth for much longer. But let's break this down into elements of fiction for a moment. And as usual, we're going to start this off with the setting. And the setting is, like I said, a few months after Civil War in the MCU that we've all known and loved for quite some time. But it introduces a new element, Wakanda. It does it primarily through narration at the beginning, although it does do some showing later on. In general, Wakanda is Shangri-La, the Golden City, the idea of this fantasy land hidden within the world, the idea of a place hidden away that has super magic, in this case technology, well beyond anything we have. That perfect place of peace where the people have grown so accustomed to peace that they almost don't understand war. Of course, that changes. And of course, the invaders from outside, the colonial forces, end up at least somewhat corrupting Shangri-La, as is always the case. However, we also have a really nice dynamic and theme here, but I'll get to that in a minute. Let's talk about characters. So I'm often left up in the air at this point. Do I start at the main character or work to him? But Black Panther is by far an awesome character. He's an awesome character in the comics, and he's even better on screen than I would have imagined. Of course, we got to meet him a little bit in Civil War, but he really comes into his own here. The ability Chad Boseman has to be both regal and fun is pretty amazing, really. You can tell that when he's with his sister or his love interest, he's a normal guy. But when he has to put on that rulership, when he has to be king, whew, he is the king and he is regal. I heard one person that takes apart trailers say that he sounded like Nelson Mandela in some scenes. And yeah, he kinda does. That slow, deliberate choice of words, something that we haven't seen in a while. He's not Tony Stark. He's not cracking jokes. He's not Peter Parker in over his head. He's a guy who's very calm, cool, and collective. But he's just a guy still. In fact, I have to say, every scene with his sister truly showcases the range as he turns into just the classic older brother. And I have to say, one of the best scenes is, you are deleting that footage. When you see it, you will understand. But okay. So they kind of separate part of him out here. He isn't the tech genius here. His sister is. And that's pretty cool. Going into this, hearing that she was supposed to be smarter than Tony Stark, even though she's only 16 years old, made even me a little apprehensive, and I've heard plenty of people complain. But Shuri is perfect. She isn't just some random 16-year-old. It's very obvious. And when they say that she's smarter than Tony Stark, the armor she built Black Panther is way better, but she has access to vibranium and he doesn't. fact, all the women really hold their own in this. I just cannot say enough good about the entire cast, and there's part of me that could spend a half hour breaking down why each and every member of this cast is brilliant. But I think I'm going to just go into a quick speed round here and end with a complaint. Alright, so we're going to start with the fact that the people of Wakanda are all fleshed out. From the head of security here, to the mom, to the tribe that doesn't like Black Panther's people. Heck, almost every one of these characters has an arc. Even the female guards, I'm not going to try to pronounce that. And even his mom, who only has a few scenes. By the time Ross gets there, we know who everyone in Wakanda is and what's going on. And Ross gets to play the hero too, in one of the great sequences coming out of the movie. But I won't spoil that for you too much. But then there's my complaint. For all the good I can talk about this cast, characterization is where the Marvel problem comes up. When you have awesome actors and awesome characters and a great setup, and your villain doesn't deliver. Claw isn't the villain of this movie. Claw is the butt monkey. And they really could have used Andy Serkis sticking around a while longer. Not even necessarily in this movie, but even just still alive and out there. But like every movie in the comic book industry, they want to kill their villains. And Killmonger gets it even worse. First, he's a very stereotypically angry black man. Second, he has abandonment issues and father issues. Third, he almost has something that you would want to relate to him with. And they throw that away almost instantly once he starts acting in character. It just... There's a villain you at least like to hate, I'll give him that. But let's get into the plot to discuss that. Mostly linear, with the exception of one or two flashbacks and a trip to the astral realm. The story is pretty straightforward. The story is all about Black Panther finding out that his father held a secret, and then the question of whether you serve your country or your king. And of course, that's a pretty timely thought here in America. Can you respect the concept of the president if you don't like the president? We've had that go on. I know, politics, but this movie is pretty steeped in it, especially when they have a scene where T'Challa says, see if I can remember it exactly, strong men build bridges, not walls, or something along those lines. And Killmonger is actually T'Challa's cousin, who has come home to take what is his, the throne of Wakanda. And he does. It's a pretty interesting concept and a great sequence and a great movie concept, even if there were little flaws here and there I could pick on. But again, when we get to theme and symbolism, we'll talk more about the whole coming to terms with who you are and what type of king you're going to be. Point of view is pretty simple, obviously. With a slight exception for the scenes with Ross, for the most part, we're following Black Panther and his family. Occasionally, like I said, dipping into other characters here and there, but for the most part, our point of view character is really the royal family, and this is their story. And why is that? Well, let's talk about themes and symbolism. So again, we get the theme of fathers and sons, and the idea that your father might have let you down, or your father might have taught you something, and maybe that's not right. And we also learned that the idea of being king means putting your country first. But then we have the whole problem of what happens when your king's the bad guy? What happens when Killmonger becomes king for a while? Well, then we have the whole problem of do you serve your king or do you serve the kingdom? Which again is a very timely thought process. We also have a pretty good idea of exactly how the country works and is set up, and there's a lot of symbolic use of real African decorative and body styles. The fact that this feels like it could be part of an African nation is brilliant. From the way they hold themselves to the way they work to just the way they communicate with each other. I will say that a few times the language barrier is a problem because they can't decide whether they're going to use subtitles or not. However, we also have a theme of isolationism. The idea that Wakanda wants to be above the problems of others by staying out of them. But of course, you can only stay out of the world so long. And that's, again, the coming to terms with the fact that for T'Challa to be the hero he wants to be, in order for his people to truly rise, he needs to come out into the world and share what they have. And there's some brilliant, brilliant things they have. Like I said, some great action set pieces, some great moments. But okay, let's break this down into the good, the bad, and the ugly. I've been going on about the good this whole time. This movie is amazing. It's a great comic adaptation. It's timely. It feels fun, and it even feels like it fits in the MCU. It's perfect. Well, it's also got a beautiful color palette, and whoever was costume designing for this was totally, totally brilliant. Everything from the way he walks around to the sneakers joke. You'll love the sneakers joke. And to the way that Wakanda is represented just physically, to the fact that they have more or less Quinjets all around there. Every bit of it just feels great. And you know what else is good? Even when things turn dark, they stay lit well enough for us to see it. So let's switch this up and do the bad. Alright, the bad is, like I said, they have a villain problem in the MCU, and they could have really kept at least one of these villains around. The other bad is the fact that we waited too long for this. I think Black Panther would have made a much better movie a year ago. The fact that it got pushed back might have allowed for some special effects to clear up and some other things, so I can't harp on that too much, but it was originally a November movie of last year. Now, from there I'm going to have to punt, because the ugly, I just don't know what to complain about. I really don't. This movie is that good. I honestly wish I had something here, since negative videos do better, but I really don't. All in all, there are two end credit sequences. Both are really setting up their place in the MCU going forward, with Wakanda coming out in the UN, and then with setting up that Bucky's up and around. All in all, I expect that Wakanda is going to play a big role, although I was really surprised at one thing. I would have guessed for sure we were going to get the Soul Gem with the heart-shaped herb. Then again, with the destruction of Thor's hammer in Ragnarok, I thought it was going to be there. I guess we're going to have to wait till Infinite War before we actually see where that stone is. It's the last one, and hopefully it comes with Adam Warlock. However, this does bring up another thing about this movie. The fact that they kind of blend and mess around with technology and magic a bit. In the comics, the god Bast is obviously looking out for him. He's got necromantic powers, he travels to the spirit world, all sorts of stuff like that. In this, they leave it very ambiguous. Is it science? Is it psychotropic drugs? Or is it magic? And we never actually get a good answer for that. And I like that. I like the fact that this could tie into Doctor Strange, or it could be purely an Iron Man thing. Like I said, we all know T'Challa and Wakanda's playing a big role in the coming movies that are crossing over. So I want to see exactly what that means. And what the shields that these guys use mean. Forget this man a shield. But standing on his own, this is still a gold-rated movie. I loved it. The action, I think, is going to hold up for action fans. There's some romance, there's some funny jokes, and at the end of the day, it's just brilliantly put together. One of the things that I think will make it rewatchable, though, is the fact that every single character is knocked out of the park with characterization. Having said that, though, I'm open to dissenting opinions. Let me know what you think down below. Have you seen it yet? Did you love it or hate it? Or even if you just want to say hi. And don't forget I'm running that contest, and you have to be a subscriber to enter. So go check out the video, I'll link it at the end. But first, could you give me a thumbs up and share this video? I'd like to build the community some more. And of course, if you haven't yet, click the subscribe button down below. What I'd really love is to be able to talk about all of these stories. And to do that, I need your help. I need to make this a two-way street. Let me know what you think. And then go to the video linked here. Ask me anything and get ready to win an Amazon gift card. I hope you have a good night, and thank you for walking with me through the heart of the stories we tell.